believe we are ready to rock.
I'm rocking.
I am rocking. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Darryl.
Good to see
Look
you.
at us. Captain Consistencies. Hey?
We are so consistent. It's scary for me.
It's almost like we enjoy talking to each other.
Isn't that nice?
Isn't that nice? Yeah, it's great.
It's
We
nice.
try to avoid all the conversations during the week. We had a quick one, this week, midweek,
And
but
the
that's
whole
okay.
time we were having it, I was like, like we shouldn't be doing this. This
We
is
shouldn't be
good
getting into
stuff.
it. Yeah, that's okay.
It's okay.
What's going on with you? The schooling, all that kind of stuff. My son started school this week.
How'd that go?
Pretty good. No
Yeah.
complaints. He's complaining, I should say, but no one complained about him, which is really all I worry about. He's complaining because they're in pods at school and recess time is segregated and all that kind of stuff, right? So
My partner, he was telling me his kid goes to private school. And so each desk has like plexiglass shield around each individual desk.
yeah,
And he said that's like it's like herding like cattle outside at recess. They've got a whole bunch of like temporary fencing to segregate the different grades and classes
yeah,
outside.
yeah.
He's like, it's like a concentration camp.
I know.
It's
It's
it's a
crazy.
Jewish school.
Well, it's just I guess there to reinforce their position that they're trying to protect the kids. I also felt because the teacher called me that she was very adamant about protecting herself, which I think is good. She was very clear with me there that the TDSB guidelines were not her minimum standard. She
Yeah.
was saying, no, this is how it's going to be in my class.
Oh,
And I
good.
told her I respected that, and I'm not here to tell her how to do her job, and I get it. I'd be
Yeah.
nervous too if I was a teacher.
Well, you would, but a lot of people wouldn't, right? It's really weird. Like I still take my son to baseball against my better judgment, and like the rest of the parents are sitting all huddled up, close together. Like the kids are running around playing football and tackling each other, and it's like it. When I was my daughter's hockey team manager, I would always say to the coach, like, you can tell how the kids are going to be by talking to the parents, right? And it always trickles down. So when the parents don't take things seriously, the kids can't. And then that festers into the school system, right? Because the kids are not going to school going like, hey, like this is so great. I feel comfortable and protected. I'm going to wear my mask to make sure I'm safe and everybody around me is safe. They're like,
Got your mask. Got your mask.
right?
I told my son if I get a call from home that says he's doing anything like funny mask business, I'm like, the computer games are over. I don't want to get a call saying Connor's taking masks off people's faces or whatever, right? So
It's a double-edged sword, though, taking away the screen time. Because there's only one replacement these days for screen time.
what's that?
Dad time. Or
Okay,
mom
that's
time,
great.
right?
That's great.
Which is great. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's not...
I took him golfing yesterday just to reinforce that.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm going to take my son to the batting cages, I think, tomorrow. I think today
Good.
we're going to go do one of our drive up north and find a place to have a picnic days. Because I think those are over after today.
Yeah, we're planning on doing something similar, probably in the city though.
But it's crazy. I mean, the good news is that all these people that don't think it's in their best interest to kind of protect themselves are what's keeping the economy going.
Well, the numbers are going up, Darryl. I don't know if you noticed this week.
Which
but we
ones?
have
Which
new gathering
numbers?
limits.
Oh, well, there's
Number
all
of
kinds of
cases.
numbers going up.
The number of cases. So yeah, gathering limits, which I was
Those
like
went down.
the first I heard of it, yeah, those went down. But I mean, because of the numbers, gathering limits, I thought, oh my gosh, what about the gyms? What about the restaurants? What about all these places where people need to have more than 10 people in one building at the same time? I said no,
It's
but
over.
no, that's it's a smart thing. If people are out there and they're having gatherings at home, and everyone's like, oh, we're inside, we're in a private residence, we don't need to wear masks. Then yeah, more than 10 people is probably a little reckless right now at this point in time.
Yeah, I would argue that it was probably not a good idea when they implemented it originally.
Sure.
But
At the end of the day, that's
it
what the
was
rules were.
necessary. Like I can see it. I mean, people are going crazy. Like murders are up in Toronto and stabbings are up in Toronto and all kinds of crazy crimes are up in Toronto right now to like some pretty scary levels. But
Yeah.
I guess the good news is the real estate market is like still chugging along like a
Whoa, what a
mother. Look at
segue.
that, eh?
Whoa, master narrator.
Thank you.
So, yeah, real estate. I mean,
Well,
what a
there's a
week we
lot
had
of
again this week.
yeah,
Booming.
I was thinking this morning like, wow, what an exciting week in real estate, but I can't really point to anything specific that happened. I mean, there's
Well,
a
that's why you got me here.
thank God I have you here because
I
otherwise
think
it'd just be like a clown show.
I think I think the school just affected stuff, right? So we saw a little bit of a lull, but I got a sale this week of something that had been sitting for a little while. It was a new build that was in an area that doesn't have a lot of new builds, so it took a little longer to sell, and that finally came to fruition. I saw a lot of activity on listings this week that I was out seeing on our team. We had 200,000, 275,000 over asking, 200,000 over asking, 100 and something thousand over asking. Like everything was just going gangbusters all throughout the core and other parts of the city. So definitely lots of activities, lots of showings. I think the one we had is 22 showings on one, 22 offers, sorry, on one.
22
And
offers.
that
That's what I
led to
was going to ask you.
275,000.
Like it only takes a couple of offers to drive the price up, but 22 is much better.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, there's definitely activity. People are back, and I'm seeing that too because I'm getting calls now from buyers who I was working with before who were kind of on the fence. COVID was slowing them down, whatever, and now they're aggressively like, okay, this property came up, let's go see it. Oh, there's another one. Like they're very active right now, and that's always a good sign. That's when you start seeing the
Yeah, and
market's changing again.
I was telling you also from my perspective, like I felt this week like things were opening up a little bit. I had a couple of things happen on my end that were not happening before.
Hmm.
Like a lot more interest in the property, and more importantly, my financing decided we're back. Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
We
There's a lot more confidence, So there's going to be a lot of changes
I
like that
think
with
so,
people
and
who are lending money in.
I don't know that it's necessarily confidence from the real economy that's happening. Like there's a lot of shenanigans going on in the background that are allowing this thing to kind of keep the momentum it had before the pandemic. I mean, really, by all stretches of the imagination, the market really should have crashed. But it didn't because there's a lot of extra money out there, right? Which,
Yeah,
I mean, I would like to get into at some point just talking about inflation and all this monetary policy, but I know
sure.
you are very
No, let's get
interested
in.
in.
Let's get into that. I mean, there's definitely. I mean, $5 billion a month of the government buying bonds
Is it a
is
month?
something.
I think it's a week.
I think it's a month. We should fact check our comments here, or else we'll be having retraction statements online. But yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to be putting out there um, for the government because of how much stimulus is being brought forward. But it's also just printing a lot more money in the as of Canadian dollars, right, to be
Five
circulated.
5 billion per week.
5 billion per week.
Per
Wow,
week.
thank you, Daryl. 5 billion per week.
So we've talked about it a few times, and I watched a video I think yesterday or the day before, and what I've been saying since I think the inception of this show is that what's happening right now is that as long as we keep pace with the United States devaluation of their currency, as long as we pump money into the system and the rest of the world pumps money into their systems at a proportionate level to at least the United States, because that's like the currency that everything is pegged against, right?
Sure, it's our biggest trade partner too, which is important. Where we're getting a lot of the stuff that people are buying.
That's definitely a factor, but I think what's most important for at least what I'm trying to get across here is that our currency can't go down. We can't really devalue our currency in the world market if everybody else is pumping money into the system, right? And we also know in Canada that it's not a good thing if our dollar gets too strong against the US dollar too, right? So
Hmm.
I mean, we need to one, maintain our economy, and two, keep pace with the states who, I mean, if we're printing or if we're pumping in $5 billion a week, I mean, the numbers in the states are just staggering, right? It's going to be
Sure.
hard to keep pace with that, but that's what
But
has to happen. And what's beautiful about that from our perspective, um,
mhm.
is that really, I mean, there's one safe haven right now if you want to increase your wealth or not lose your buying power from the dollar getting just constantly increased. Like the supply is just constantly being increased of money out there chasing the exact same goods, right? And so real estate um, is stable, because what happens when you pump the system full of money, inflation happens whether they admit it or not. Inflation is happening like crazy, and what happens is the prices of real estate goes crazy, right? And we see this already, and I mean this has been happening since 2001 really, but like really heavily since 2007, 8, 9, right?
Hmm.
And that's why we've continued along this amazing path. And what we have going on here in Canada is not only are we inflating the crisis and the debt away, um, we're well. Anyways, what do you think about what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I agree. I think when they look at the consumer price index, the cost of goods are going up, and unfortunately, people's incomes aren't going up, and that's my concern with inflation.
Well,
So yeah, I
and
mean,
then
the value of the currency is always a big deal, but I think on the ground level, with people who are actual consumers, who are actually look like renters and first time buyers and people and retirees and stuff like that, whose incomes are not going to be increasing or significantly with inflation over the next 10, 20 years. Um, my concern is just how much more money, how much more can they afford, right? And this may push them to never be able to get into the housing market. So it's going in a direction that it may not be, it's inevitable, right? But it's definitely a direction that I think we want to try to avoid, and that the Bank of Canada is going to do everything they can to avoid, so that the dream of homeownership is realized for as many Canadians as possible.
well, I think it's the new Canadians that can afford to buy into this economy. The people that were born here are getting inflated out of the market, right? And I mean, they're either going to have to turn into renters or they're going to have to move further away. But it's the people that are chasing the American or Canadian dream now, right? Because, I mean, if everybody if people want to move, and their choices, they're coming from a third world country and they have money and they want to move. I mean, what are the best choices right now? Most people would have pointed to the States, but the States doesn't want anybody anymore, right? And everybody's afraid of the States. So Canada's at a discount because our dollar is like 70% of the US dollar, right? We have lax immigration. We want people to come in. We almost, we give people incentives to move here, right? And those are the people that have the money to buy this real estate, or the investors that are just looking for a safe haven, right, for
Hmm.
their money. And that's going to increase. I mean, people, I think that will decrease. But I mean, I've talked to other people and they're saying that uh, outside money is coming in like crazy again and just
Hmm.
looking for places to go.
Thanks, buddy. Sorry, Daryl.
No problem.
Over here, bud. Connor. Thanks. Close the door behind you. There you go. Halfway through.
So I
Um,
think this thing is going to go absolutely insane.
yeah.
It,
So,
it, it's got no other way to go. And then so
yeah, the thing about inflation that the government likes, right, is it's their bailout 50 years from now, right? Because paying off this debt of $5 billion a week with money in 50 years from now
it's not even
is
a
cheap.
no, but it's not even an idea. They're never planning on paying this off. They can't,
But the thing
because
about it is the interest that they're paying off in the future, right? So right now, if they're borrowing, $50 billion, well, 50 billion of today's money is $50 billion. But in 50
right,
years,
right, right.
$50 billion is going to be like, probably somebody's wages or something like that. One of the
Sure,
top levels
because
CEOs.
they're going to
So
keep printing more and more and more, and that's the
and
thing.
that's
You
what I'm
can't
saying.
you
So
can't
inflation
end this
helps
thing.
long-term debt, right? Which is why the government has no issue taking on debt.
They
And it's not
have to.
necessarily because they're going to hang on to the debt forever. It just becomes cheaper and cheaper to service year over year over year as inflation rises.
Well, so you brought up the CPI, which I've been studying a lot the last few days, trying to understand it really. And I think they make it a little trickier to understand than they should. But basically, the CPI is a load of horse crap.
Yeah, well, explain. Tell me.
Well, I mean, they have energy, food, shelter, clothing. They have all the stuff that we buy regularly, right? Which we've talked about a few times. I mean, I don't know of anything that has stayed stagnant in price. Do you?
Um, no, not off the. I guess gas.
Gas is the only thing that has
Yeah.
gone down, right? On this whole list that I can see. I mean, so
The only reason gas is even close to the same price now is because there's more tax in it. But if the tax increase, carbon taxes and all that kind of stuff weren't at play, gas would actually be a lot cheaper right now.
I can't figure out how from the items that are in this basket that they use to gauge this CPI, how there isn't, like, they're saying that they are not even hitting their 2%, right?
Hmm.
So I mean that the CPI is like the stock market; it's completely fixed. They make it a little confusing, so nobody like looks into it or even gives a crap about it. They say they're not hitting their benchmarks so that they can keep pumping money in the system, because if they the alternative is deflation, and deflation
Did
is
we
really bad.
did we just uncover a conspiracy?
No, it's been there all along.
Well,
But
it makes
anyways,
sense though.
it,
That makes sense.
no, but it's not even a conspiracy. Like it is how it is, because this, listen, they cannot allow a contraction. It destroys the whole system. I mean, look at what's happening right now, and people are dying, people are murdering people, people are going crazy. Like, this is not good, right?
Hmm.
And things seemingly are still kind of chugging along. I mean, imagine if the real estate market crashed on top of all this other stuff. It
Yeah,
would be
that would be a huge issue.
crazy.
Yeah.
So they can't let it happen, which means there's only one way out of this mess, the way the current system is. And the current system is way too big and integrated into everything to change. So it's like this thing will just get inflated until there's no end in sight, and everything, it collapses like everywhere else where that happens
So what you're saying is the real estate market's going to continue to rise.
for years and years and years. Listen, it's going to be like
What about all the people who
Zimbabwe.
say no?
Who's saying no?
What about all the people who are saying it's time to crash? Go on YouTube, you can find 100
Oh,
videos on it.
sure, but then
They're all saying it's
they have no reasons. They just say it's going to crash. I mean, listen, I started working in this industry in like 1990 something, late 90s, okay? And I used to work in a lumber yard, and we would pump out so much lumber, and it was just crazy. And we would always say, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? This has been going like 20 years. It's like going with a couple of little blips, but just going like crazy. And it never really ended. We just had a couple of little blips.
hmm
It just keeps chugging along because they just keep printing money. And we understand that, like, when you print money, assets go up. Like, what else is going to happen? Right? Because there's only so many houses, and there's this
hmm
much more money chasing those few houses. So what happens? People need the houses. It's not
Yep.
like an option, right? It's like, what should I live inside or outside this year? Like, this is not a
There's no
choice, right?
option.
There's
Yeah.
not really an option, no good option. So it's like,
How many of your friends are homeless
um, I,
today?
I don't believe any.
None of them. Okay, yeah, none of mine are either.
Um,
So where does everybody live?
inside.
Inside. Wow, look at that. What an idea.
And
What an
somebody
idea.
owns that thing.
And so right now there's a certain amount of houses and we have a certain amount that are vacant and there's a 90+% are occupied.
The ones that are vacant, I think for the most part are vacant, you know, because of the pandemic
Temporarily.
or on purpose.
Okay. So there's vacancies, right? But right now there's a certain amount of people leaving the GTA because we're talking about the Toronto market and there's a certain amount of people coming into the GTA, right? Where are all those people going to live?
Exactly.
Right now, if all the houses are taken and we only have a small percentage vacant, where are all the people going to live, Daryl? Because I don't know any homeless people. You don't know any homeless people. So I'm assuming that all these people coming to Toronto, they don't want to be homeless.
Well, actually,
That's
right now in
yeah,
Toronto or most places, being homeless is a luxury lifestyle where you get a free hotel
private
stay. You get a room in a
yeah,
hotel now. This
yeah,
is great. So maybe I do have some friends that are homeless and I just can't tell
maybe
right now.
take advantage. But you know what I mean, right? So it's like
Sure.
everyone talks about, the market going down and this is what's going to happen, but at the end of the day, if everyone needs a place to live and they all got to, pay for that cost, whether it be a rental or a home or a ownership situation,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the market will continue to carry on.
It
And
has
until
to.
people are either okay with being homeless, right?
In Toronto, where it's like -2 already today.
Or we have way more houses than we need. That is when the market is going to tank. That's the point that we need to be concerned about. So
Right. So
why
so
why don't we
so
look at those two factors?
well, it, so this is obviously a beautiful segue into the fact that we are short a lot of housing units, okay? And we went into the pandemic. I mean, I haven't heard anybody talking about it for a while, but we went into this thing in a full-blown housing crisis.
Hmm.
Rental side, ownership side, right?
Yep.
Both sides, there was nowhere close to enough supply to meet the demand. And then all of a sudden we had a pandemic, we slowed down, and then it went kaboom again, right? And so if before the pandemic, and I don't remember the numbers, for some reason in my head, I have 140,000 buying groups that were coming into Ontario every single year,
Okay.
okay? And they need a place to live.
Hmm.
And if I remember, and I could be wrong, but somewhere between 40 and 50,000 units is the most that we've ever put on the market in Toronto. I don't know about Ontario, but I mean, other than Toronto, I mean, there's not too much else going on in Ontario to be realistic, right? So whatever the total was, let's just say it was we had 130 buying groups, 130,000 buying groups coming in. We had 50, 60, 80,000 units that got completed. There's a shortfall, right? Whatever the number is, it doesn't even
Hmm.
matter right now. Every fucking year we've had a shortfall of supply against the demand that was there, right?
40,000 units per year is what the demand for rental housing was. That's just rental,
And we were
right?
producing like 3,000 a year, like,
And we had 200,000 people in each of the last 2 years coming into Ontario,
well,
mostly in the GTA.
and that's an important number actually. And we talked about it the other day because 200,000 is like at least 40% more than they anticipated, right?
Yeah. So this
So,
is the Federal of Rental Housing Providers of Ontario study that they did, and this is what the article that we're talking about is
right.
for anybody listening.
And the
And this is a
main
game changer.
and what was so the main point was that we are short, what was it?
200,000 net
By what
rental
year?
units by 2031.
By 2031. So in 10
For the next
years,
10 years, roughly, we're still going to be short 200,000 units, and we need to find a way to be able to create them.
and this is
We need to find a way.
assuming, I think the report takes into account that immigration will have slowed for a couple of years and then start going back to a normal pace over the timeline.
No, it took into account at the end of 2019. So at the rate that we were at. So yeah, sure, there's going to be some slow return to the immigration side, but also there's been a huge break in the supply side.
Actually, well, I have a article here that's talking about busiest month in home construction for builders like of all time.
What
What,
would
what,
have been like? What would have been like for new starts if the pandemic had not occurred? We
well,
lost 3 months of people saying, "I'm going to start making new applications. I'm going to start buying land. I'm going to start thinking about what I can do,"
sure.
because we had lost 3 months, right?
Well, and it makes sense that we had the busiest month in home construction. We've had the busiest market of all time. I mean, that construction that's being built now is not from today's demand. This is
No, of
from a
course
few
not.
years ago, right?
That's what I mean.
So,
So new starts. How many new starts are we going to lose in 5 years from now? because of the delay from COVID.
2, 3, 4 years from now, even sooner, right?
Yeah.
And immigration will open up. It's already opening up. We've got 13,645 immigrants in July
Yeah,
2020.
there's still people getting their PR cards and stuff. There's still things happening. There's still people going over the borders. You just can't drive over the border.
I don't even think you can not like. I think you
So
can drive over the border if you have the right story.
there you go. But so immigration is way down, and we're still letting people into the country. So it's
It's
not like
crazy. And
it's
everybody's
happened
like,
shut off
I don't know
completely.
what's going on. I can't believe the numbers are going up.
Yeah,
This is crazy. Meanwhile, you have to like stop your statement because the plane's flying overhead.
yeah.
Hold on one sec. I don't know why this is going on. Hold on. Anyways, so 200,000 units short just in rentals by
Yeah,
2031. So
yeah.
I'm not an economist and I don't profess to be one, but I think prices should go up as a result of that shortage.
Well, let's talk about how we are meeting the rental demand. What's the number one way that people have been meeting the rental demand
Right.
prior to the rent control being removed back in 2018?
Yeah. So in the
Over the last 30
90s,
years, it's been
they switched from building purpose-built
purpose
rental
built.
buildings, and
Yeah.
they switched to building condos. And what happened is all the investors came in to buy the condos to rent them out. So I don't know what the split is in a condo, but I'd bet at least 50% of them are investor owned and rented out to people that, I mean, they had to live somewhere, right?
So CMHC estimates that 50% newly completed condos in Toronto are used as rentals compared to one-third
Boom!
share of the overall stock.
I didn't read the
New
article. I didn't
new
read
new
that thing.
new completed condos 50%, but the overall stock of condos one-third.
Overall
So
stock of
we're
condos.
trending towards more rentals than we were in the past. Is what they're saying.
Yeah, because where else are they going to live, the renters? And we've talked about it before. Like, people have to shift to being renters. I mean, home ownership in Toronto is way out of reach for a lot of people now. So
Hmm.
everything just spells increases in rent prices. Even though every article right now talks about rents going down, 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 rents in Toronto dropped 10%, blah, 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 blah. This is going to explode again. Because how many, does it say how many actual units we're building per year? Finishing? I mean,
How many units? What?
there's only 13,000
That's
units in
purpose built or condos?
construction. Rental, purpose built. Excuse me, purpose built rental. I mean, there's only
There's 9,443 rental apartments started construction in 2019. That's 14% higher than 2018, highest annual recorded since 1992. And there's 66,000 rental apartment units officially submitted for development in the GTA in the end of 2019,
okay.
and that
Hold on,
is
hold on.
50% higher than there was a year before,
Right.
and doubling the average in the past 3 years. So obviously, the 2018 rent control lift is a major contributor. So now we're going to start seeing more purpose-built
Well, there's
rentals.
a couple of contributors. So one, yeah, the price increase or the rent increase, or being allowed to increase your rents on a new building, that is a huge factor. But I think another big factor is all of these pension funds and REITs and all these companies that are out there with gigantic money and
Yeah,
not
they're
sure
leaving
where to
retail
throw
and
it, right? And they're
yeah,
all leaving retail and commercial. I mean, what's the next logical step?
yeah,
You see companies like Starlight. I mean, they're buying up everything. They know, they see what's going to happen here. They're buying
yeah,
anything they can. It looks to me like every deal, as long as it's like between $250,000 to $290,000 per door, they're buying that building.
yeah.
And they're spending billions and billions of dollars buying up all these buildings all over the place because I don't know what would stop this rental machine. On top of the fact that people can't afford to buy anymore. So, like, if you want to live in Toronto and you want to have the Canadian dream, whatever the hell that is,
Hmm.
I mean, where are you going to move? Even if
So,
you
so I think the factor that's going to stop it is what's been stopping it, and that is the red tape, right? So finding the land, getting approvals done. I mean, 19% of proposed purpose built rentals were approved. 19%.
19%, and over how long a period? Like you just said, there's 60,000 apartment units, rental units in for application right now, and that's
Yeah,
at
so that's
various stages.
2019.
That's
2019.
but that's not just new ones from 2019. That's the total in 2019. And so what that means
Mhm.
is there's stuff in there from 2012 still that they're still trying to figure
Exactly.
out how to get
So exactly.
permits, right?
Yeah,
So so
exactly.
so it's not like 60,000 units are going to all of a sudden come online like we see right now. This year there's 13 or 9,000 in construction. Next year there'll be, dependent on the labor that's available, is it going to be more beneficial to build this condo for the guy for the labor, or are they going to go to this rental building, or is,
Well,
is
let's
there
look
a
at
rent?
let's
Is there a pool of labor that can handle this ever? Like
well, let's look at the numbers. So they're talking about 50% of people are willing to buy a condo and rent it out. How
50% of
many
what people?
50% of the buyers who are buying the pre-construction condos right now are looking to rent them out. That's when the new construction number is 50%. The number you predicted with your savvy
Yes,
know-how,
with my
right?
market knowledge.
Market knowledge, right? You just know the numbers without even looking at them.
Boom.
Now, think about it this way. How many of those people with 20% down, the minimum down payment for a conventional mortgage and the minimum deposit for the pre-construction contract, are going to have positive cash flow?
With 20% down,
Yeah,
zero, zero.
0. So right now, it's already at negative cash flow. How many more people in the future, over the next 10 years, how many of these condo investors are going to continue to do this? Can we rely on them over the next 10 years to continue to buy these rising condos at these prices
Yeah,
with the rent that can't keep pace, to continue to lose money based on speculation on a future,
I think
you
we
know,
can, only because you don't
we can rely
have
on them at the
to.
same rate? No way. You can't.
I think you can rely on, well, okay, there's two things that are
The
going
rate
to,
will decrease.
the rate will decrease, but there's also, I think, a lot more people that are going to be renting, right?
Sure. Is that gonna drive rents up enough to go back into positive cash flow or something closer to breaking even? I don't think it's gonna be enough.
No, but
I think
I think
rent and prices of condos have been keeping pace.
but 20% is not a mandate. So people from wherever that are trying to hide their money will just put more money in the deal, or they don't
Okay.
even give a shit that it's negative.
But right now, those people could buy 5 condos, and
Sure,
in 6 years from now, they're gonna buy 2 with the same amount of money. So
sure.
I don't believe that
Well, but there's a
so
lot
when
of
people are
people that are
talking,
going to buy condos to live in themselves now too. Like that's going to
50% of them are.
right, 50%.
So if that
Uh,
now goes to 55, 60% more, those people will be living in there for themselves, which is fine.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with that.
yeah,
But there's going to be less of a rental supply, which means there's going to be pressure on places. Because again, you and I, this is just a two-person study, don't know any homeless people
yeah.
who want to be homeless and are staying homeless for indefinite periods,
The
right?
average amount of homeless people the two of us know is
Yeah,
zero.
is 0. It's on
So,
all the
so,
studies that we've researched.
so, but if
It's
I
0.
meet someone tomorrow, the
Yeah,
headline will be 100% increase in the
increase in
amount of
homeless people.
people that Darryl and TK know that are homeless, right?
There you go. We know how to manipulate the numbers.
Look at
So
us.
again, that's a huge point, right? So where are all those people going to live? They need the purpose-built rentals because it guarantees that all those units on that land. There's only so much land that can be developed. There's only so much land that people are willing to sell. There's only so much land that can accommodate the density. There's only so much land that's going to be viable for transit and schooling and jobs and all that kind of stuff, right? And if they continue to go to condos, we're going to lose we're going to have less rentals available for people, so more of them need to be headed in the purpose-built rental direction in order for um, this shortfall to be maintained. It's actually going to get worse
Worse.
if we have less purpose-built rentals and more condominiums. That number will get worse. Instead of 200,000 net shortfall, we could have even a greater number. There'll be even less
It will
of
be
a
less.
of
And
that.
200,000 is already more than the report would have shown you probably 3 years ago, right?
So the last study they did was in 2017. It's double. So they looked at, well, what pace are we at? And they were thinking after 10 years we're going to have 100,000. I think it was 110,000 units shortfall. So we'll be about 11,000 per year.
So
And
why
now
do
it's
we, any of us,
20,000 per year.
why do we even listen to these idiots? Like, why does anybody read this crap? It's just such horseshit. It's so easy to just say, okay, we don't have enough for everybody, and
Yeah,
we still want tons of people to come in. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Prices will go up. Demand is definitely going to go up. Immigration will go up like crazy in Toronto.
so let's talk about
Labor,
that again.
labor will go down. So hold on a sec. Right now, I watched this unbelievable video yesterday, and the guy was talking about is technology is deflationary by default. Technology is here to make things more efficient and less expensive, right?
Yeah.
But the economy wants to be inflationary, to keep going up, right? So like, how do you manage that when all this technology is coming online? So the reason I'm saying this is there's no way that there's enough labor that's skilled enough to
Human
meet this
resources.
demand, right? So
Yeah,
even if the builders got more permits, like who's building this stuff, right? So what
yeah.
I promise you what has to happen is the robots are coming, right? The machines to build inside the factories it's gonna have to happen. They have to figure out ways to keep production going and costs down. It's inevitable, right?
Sure.
So if a builder has permits and can't find someone to build it, what
Prefabricated apartment buildings.
more listen, it's all over the world. It's just not
Yeah,
here, it's
yeah,
everywhere, prefab, and they've got
yeah,
like 3D printers building houses with concrete, and
yeah.
they've got so many technologies right now that have to start coming into Toronto because the prices are just so crazy. So it used to be that people would think, oh, this is prefab, this is garbage, but like it doesn't even make sense, the argument, right?
Hmm.
Something that's prefabricated is built like with precision by like robots and
Yeah,
computers.
Japanese, very, 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 on top of that kind of stuff. They've been
It's
doing it for years.
it's amazing. So I
Yeah,
mean, this is what's going to happen is prices are going to be trying to come down while the economy and the inflationary like policies are going to keep pushing the prices up, and it's like this crazy weirdness where like I don't even know how it ends. All I know is that prices have to keep going up because there's not even
well,
enough
let me add to
robots.
that point. Let me add to that point. So we agree that there's only so much land that can be built on. We agree that there's only so many projects that the labor force can handle. We agree that we need to step away from the condos because of the investors are no longer going to be able to be willing to rent out or able to rent out their units. So we have to go more in the direction of purpose-built or purpose-built apartment buildings. So therefore, because there's only going to be so much land, if more are going towards purpose-built, it'll actually take away some of the supply in the future of condos for people to buy and to live in, which will create a stronger market because of the lack of supply. Right now, it seems like, oh my God, we have so many cranes. Oh my gosh, there's so many buildings going up. But at the rates that we need to maintain in order to be able to, keep people off the streets, we actually don't have enough.
Don't have enough. And we talk like Toronto's got the most cranes in the world, but we have
Yeah,
half the cranes we need to meet demand,
yeah.
right?
So those
Forget
that
about
land,
cranes, but
people still need to buy. So if people are all getting rentals and they can't afford to buy anymore, I get that. They're going into the purpose built. There's the argument. Yes, people won't be able to afford. The city will get too expensive. They'll go into purpose built rentals. But what about all the people who can afford? If we aren't building as many condos and most of them are going to purpose built rentals,
you,
where are they going to buy?
you,
They're going to fight over. Right now, the fight over land in the city is huge.
oh yeah,
That's what we're seeing right
oh
now.
yeah.
There's only so much land. There's very, very, very few lots that can be developed. The majority of them are all infill stuff. It's just
You're talking
finding
about in the
pockets of the
core?
city throughout the 416, whatever it is. The majority of stuff that will be developed is not because there's a vacant lot sitting somewhere. It's
No.
because they're taking on a site that already exists and creating the highest and best use with what they've got to work with. But as far as condominiums go, there's plenty of sites that can be improved. That's your area of expertise, and there's a ton of options for builders to go into. But there's just only so many resources, like you said, human resources to build. There's
Well,
only
but
so
and there's
much
only so many.
approval.
Well, and there's only so much land
19%.
that's actually for sale too, right?
And then that's the other part too, is you got to find
Somebody has
people
to want
willing
to sell it.
to sell the property to make this happen. And the baby boomers eventually will want to give up the
Well, but
the
hold on.
stronghold they have on
Yeah, but
on
you
the land
listen,
and
if
in
you
the city. But
if you have a brain and you do understand that assets are getting inflated like crazy right now, and it's like literally the tip of the iceberg because they can't stop the printing press, right?
yeah,
Why the hell would you sell your land right now?
true.
Like, why would you? Especially, listen, if I owned something for 40 years and I had little or no mortgage on it and I had $20,000, $30,000 coming in a month in rent from this little strip mall that my dad gave me, I'd got to be a fucking moron to sell that thing. That thing should stay in the family forever, right?
Hmm.
And just get
Yeah,
passed down and let everybody enjoy 20, 30 grand a month of revenue.
I think everyone's got different
Of
scenarios, so it just
course.
depends
It's
on
just all
short
crazy.
term, long term goals, stuff like that too.
But
But
the point
if you
is
can hang
that
on to real estate long term, it is the best asset to hang on to.
well, and the point is that there's only so much that people will sell, and and then on top of the ones that are willing to sell, it has to be development land. Like, okay, great.
Sure.
Some guy wants to sell his farm and it's 90 acres. Well, great, but I'm going to spend the next 10 years rezoning that thing,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
downtown, I mean, if I can put together enough pieces side by side by side and still make it make sense, fine. But then, like you go out to Scarborough and there's land that's abundant, but there's only so many people that want to build a lot of units in Scarborough or
Exactly.
or Brampton or wherever, right?
That's a great point that you brought up. The Scarborough numbers. Let me pull them up. It's crazy the
Scarborough
difference.
is
It's
crazy.
dead. It's dead.
What do you mean
It's
dead?
like so I'm gonna just show you the numbers here because I was looking. I'm like, well, where's Scarborough? Purpose-built rental projects Q4 2019.
Oh,
Proposed projects Q4 7. Right, and it's
seven.
all because there's 5,000 units in the one smart center development in the west part of Scarborough on Eglinton. But you're
How
talking
many
about
units?
proposed project 7, and it says because these smart centers
This
largely
is
comprise of more than 5,000 units planned for the smart center Scarborough redevelopment site.
Oh, that's in the Golden Mile. Yeah.
Golden Mile, exactly. Yeah. So
That whole Golden Mile
absence of
is
new units built in the past 2 years, right? And so now obviously we're seeing a lot more increase in the Scarborough area, but really that's the place to be.
I think it's the place to be for sure.
Yeah,
And
that's
prices
the
are
place to be.
still
It's the most
cheap.
undervalued part of the city,
I really
right?
think it is.
Yeah,
I
that's why
really
more
think
people
it
are
is.
coming out here.
Well, people are starting to now, and it's really starting to heat up. And then if you look at rental numbers, like while everything else was going down, Scarborough rents actually were going up, which is
Yeah,
pretty interesting. But I mean,
because they were the lowest. It was the most affordable, so people needed a break.
no, it's
But when I
not the
said
most affordable. Scarborough's the eighth most expensive city for rent in Canada.
okay, and compared to Toronto at the time, it was the
Oh,
most affordable. That's
definitely more
why
affordable.
it increased, right? Because you got Galloway, you got Malvern, you got a few areas. So look, purpose-built rental projects under construction, right? Currently in Toronto, 25, North York 3, Etobicoke 2, East York 1, Scarborough 0.
Zero.
Yeah,
And it's ripe. It's ripe. It's ripe for
yeah,
all kinds of apartment stuff.
exactly.
But
So now let's go into that where the report has suggested the easiest and best way for them to be able to create an abundance of supply. So what they're talking about is if they use these 950 sites that have been located throughout the
the,
entire GTA and Hamilton area,
these are
they would
these are the apartment sites that have extra land.
exactly.
Yeah.
There are 176,000 units without any land uh,
Purchase.
changing zoning or anything like that.
No, it's
It's
the
already
cost. It's the cost. There's no cost associated with the land because
with
they
the land
own the
exactly,
land, which is a
and the land's already used for apartments.
Well,
That's the other factor.
yeah, I guess that I don't think
That's
that
another
matters
factor too.
much, but
So they're
it's
not talking
easier.
about a major change in zoning or anything like that too,
No
which
zoning
you would know more
change.
about the height densities and stuff. But either way, um, that's 176,000. What is the likelihood of all 950 sites being willing to partner up on a JV or something like that with somebody who's got the resources to be able to do a project like this? You know
Much,
people. What do
much,
you think?
much lower than it really should be.
Much lower than it should be, but it's not very high.
No, it's not high at all.
Because the big business guys, if you got Smart Center coming in, if you got RioCan, whoever you're partnering up with, they're going to be shrewd business people. Like they're going to want a deal on what they're doing, and they're not going to be willing to help you out much because chances are your building's from the '70s and it needs a lot of capital improvements.
I don't know how that factors in because you're building something new on the same land. But what I don't think I think like, are you talking about? You said JV, so are you talking about inviting in a builder to come and build
If you
something
if,
on your
if you don't want to
land?
sell, you just talked about people should not sell their
No,
apartment
they
buildings that they've
shouldn't. They
owned for
should.
decades.
And that's why
So
I'm
they're not
saying
selling.
it's
Most
too
people aren't
low.
selling.
It's
So now
crazy.
you need to offer them an alternative and say, no, we need your land to build. So lease us the land to build the building.
Don't even lease it to us. Pay us a fee to build something for you.
Whatever type of terms you need to have in
Yeah.
order to make the contract. We got 176,000 potential units out there to be able to build new construction that people are going to like. And the thing is, purpose-built rentals are getting a premium right now above what their markets are getting because they're well managed. It's all centralized. You're not dealing with like an individual private investor who's got all sorts of different things that come into play. You
Yeah.
got better quality finishes in the purpose-built rentals compared to what condos are putting in. You got better services, amenities, management, all that kind of stuff geared towards renters only. So they really are nailing it in some of these premium locations downtown with the purpose-built rentals.
Yeah, the problem is I mean, it takes the right group to be able to get funding to build this thing because there's no pre-sales.
That's why I'm talking about the big guys are the only ones who can.
The big guys are the only ones who can.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
listen, out of all those properties that have extra land, I mean, what would the reason be to not put another building on your land?
Right?
Like what?
I guess
Hi.
disruption of tenants, there'd be construction. Like you're putting up 20, 30, 40, 50 stories, whatever it is. That's a big project, right? Also, people too, out of stubbornness, right? Don't want to give up a part of their land because there will be some type
But
of
don't give it
arrangement on
up.
title.
Don't give it up. Just let people build on it.
Yeah.
Let me build you a building here, right? But the
Yep.
problem is even if ththose 176 properties would be willing to, it'd take
176,000 units. It's 950
sorry.
sites.
So if the 900, so if 1,000 sites were even
Yeah.
willing to let us build on them, it
Hmm.
would still take 5 years to get the permits in this city, even though
Yeah.
they're already apartment sites.
Yeah, exactly.
So it doesn't even like there's no scenario where we catch up. There's none. It's impossible. Not anytime soon because the robots have to catch up to be able to actually meet the demand. And then
Hmm.
the government somehow has to get on board and get rid of all the red tape that everybody has to go so that when the robots are ready, they have something to build. I mean, listen, the reality is you don't know my kids, but I'm pretty sure neither of them are going into hard labor. Right? And I haven't met your kids, but I would guess the same thing. So
Not the older one, that's for sure.
I
Not a
mean,
chance.
if everything else failed and I absolutely had no other choice, I would consider being a laborer. But my back would go out on the first day and I'd be collecting disability.
Yeah.
Like who's taking these jobs? And the immigrants that are coming in now are much more skilled, and they're really looking for people for the tech sector, right?
Hmm.
So like, where is the labor pool? It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna catch up. Just like New York. Now everybody's talking that
That's
people
funny.
are
I was just about to mention that.
well, but it's
I
weird.
was just
Like
about to mention
I've
that.
I've
This is where New York went, years ago. This is where all this is coming from,
well,
right? New
it's a
York had
natural
sites to build on.
progression.
Yeah.
It's a natural progression, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, people are leaving New York, but I think more people will go in. I mean, it's People are like leaving. The big story in the States is people are fleeing New York and California because the
Yeah,
cities are not being run well.
yeah,
But Toronto's actually being run pretty well, I
I agree.
think. I mean,
It feels like it. I mean,
I
I'm
don't
pretty
have
naive
a
to what's going on in the rest of the world, but
I don't know what it would be like to live anywhere else, but I mean, I think probably
I
people
feel good.
complain
I feel
about
confident. I feel like people are writing home, telling their families how great it is.
right.
But let's talk about that. I was talking to somebody who's from China, and they were telling me that business is back to everything like it was
Oh
before in
yeah,
China.
they're pumping out anything.
There's no like shutdowns. They've figured it out. They know what they need to do to stay safe. They know how to handle certain protocols if you get sick. They know what to do for testing. They've really got it figured out, and I think there's lots to learn there. And I think that Toronto will eventually get on track faster than what a lot of other places, especially in the States, have been dealing with.
Well, and you see already, like they're willing to do what they have to do. I mean, this is a little. I think what we've been doing here is like precursor. Like they've been priming us to build up to the lockdown, and then they'll prime us back into the lockdown. Or you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I don't think stage two. I don't think that's gonna happen. That's
I don't know
my
what's gonna happen.
prediction.
Look at but if you look at the
I think the
numbers,
numbers are gonna go up.
they're going back up to peak
They're going up.
levels.
They're going up. But it's gonna be dealt with in a different way. They're gonna have different.
Different way. There's
Uh,
no full shutdown happening for
no,
sure.
but they're gonna have different metrics. So they're right now they've been
It's
saying things
whack-a-mole.
like they've been saying like a certain percentage of people are under 40, right?
Yeah.
So like they're kind of giving out these different types of statistics in order for people to kind of understand a little bit more about it. And at first it was long-term care and all that stuff, so we were not very fearful. Now they're saying no, young healthy people are getting the virus, right?
Kids,
But then
babies,
they're talking about
dogs.
percentages going into hospital, percentage of them having to be hospitalized. So now it's a greater number of people have to be hospitalized today
Oh, is
than
it?
percentage wise
Oh, I
than
thought
there
that was
were
going down.
before, right?
I
So
thought
no
that was
number
going
of
down.
I think the number of people being hospitalized is
Okay.
going down.
I thought
So I
the
think,
number of people being hospitalized and the number of deaths was going down, but the cases were starting to go through the roof.
yeah, okay.
I think it's not as
What I
severe.
read was exactly what I read was that is that even though case numbers are a lot lower than they were before, there are people who are getting sicker. I think what it is people are getting more comfortable going to hospitals. Nobody was in the hospitals before. Everyone's like, hospital? No way. I'm
Yeah,
staying at home. I'm going to call telehealth. They're going to tell me what to do. I'm not going to the hospital. That's where I'm going to die.
yeah.
But now people are like, okay, well, I heard nobody's there, so maybe I'll go check in and they can take care of me and stuff too. I think that's a
I think
factor.
we're being more educated and we're starting to see like, okay, maybe we don't have to be that scared. We just have to be smart. And if we're
Yeah,
smart,
cautious.
if we're
Contact
cautious,
tracing is working, right?
yeah.
Somebody gets a case and someone knows about it. You were
Unless
talking about the hockey rink.
it doesn't work if you went to a strip club
It doesn't work if you gave a fake name and phone number.
or no name.
Yeah. And then the
I
weddings,
swear, honey, I wasn't there. I read an
yeah, I don't
article
know how
about
they
a
got my
guy
number.
who gave his brother's information, and then the brother got a call,
No.
and his wife went bananas. What are you doing there? I
But when you
swear,
give
I
a fake
swear.
name, listeners, when you give a fake name at the strip club for contact tracing, don't give your brother's real name and phone number.
No,
Not a good idea.
no.
Even if you guys look similar. Don't
It
throw him under the bus.
don't throw him under the bus. Isn't that funny
That's
though?
hilarious. Yeah, no.
I'm.
I mean, we're in
How,
interesting times.
I don't know how you open up a strip club in this, but anyways, I mean, there's
That's the last place that needs to be open. That should be just like a bar or a rest or nightclub, no? Like you'd think dancing, there's people dancing in there, just it's one-sided. One person dances, the other person doesn't,
I think the one of the main reasons to go there is for some form of human contact.
right?
I think. I
Doesn't
mean, I don't
I'm
really
pretty
go.
sure
I get plenty of
that's what I
contact.
read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
So,
what they're like in there. I'm afraid.
yeah, that's weird. But either way, all that stuff is working. So I've noticed the contact tracing when they're announcing things, and they're like people who are here, da, da, da. And so it's just going to make people more cautious. Because if I found out that I was in a place with COVID-19, I'm not going to live my life the same way over the next 2 weeks. I'm going to take extra precaution. I'm going to put in extra. Maybe I'm going to quarantine if they're like you shook hands with the guy or something, whatever it is. But if I just found out that I was in that location, then I would definitely rethink. I just haven't heard that yet.
Well,
Nobody said to me that I've even been near the virus yet. Like
yeah.
there's nothing.
Did you hear about which gym was it? There's like some employees from one of the big gyms, um, Good Life, I think it was, that were saying like they are not following the policies here. Like this is not safe at all.
Yeah, our gym's not necessarily following. Although this week at jiu-jitsu, they had everything was all the kids' classes. I brought my son in and everything was very solo, spaced out. They even had some grading, like some testing and stuff like that, all solo. Kids weren't touching each other. Weren't so I was impressed with that. That was pretty neat. But I know I've seen lots of examples of slippery slopes that if there was an issue, this would lead to further exposure. But I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to take their own risks, which is why I'm super grateful that this is not going to apply to businesses. I don't want to see any other businesses suffer. I just
They anna-
there's so many people I know who are on the brink of disaster. I'm dealing with a lot of people right now who are older, so they've got businesses that have been around for a long time and they're deciding that this is now a good time to shut down as they've maybe been winding down, planning on retirement, whatever it is. We're seeing that, but it's when the young people, the guys who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who planned on being in business another 20 years, when they're starting to talk about shutting down. Those are sad stories.
well, and now the government announced a program to buy restaurants heaters for their patios, just to
Mm,
extend this patio season a little bit. Because when there's no more patios, like
yeah,
bye bye restaurants.
restaurants are going to struggle. Yeah, I had a great dinner on the Danforth 2 weekends ago. You know, it was so exciting. You're kind of just right on the street there, and people are going by in and out, and you feel like you're at a restaurant and you're enjoying it just like anything else, but you're on the sidewalk.
You're on the sidewalk and your server looks like a alien robot.
It was okay. I was happy. Food was
Were
great.
they wearing a shield or
Shout out
just a
to
mask?
Sula's modern Greek cuisine.
Boom.
I think that was a mask, but I've seen a lot of the clear shields, right? That looks funny. I think go with the mask, people. Don't wear the mask that covers your face. It's okay. We can see your eyes. You got pretty eyes. But when I see men and women wearing just the spit shields, yeah, I
No,
can
it
see your
has
whole
to be a
face,
combo, no?
but
Both.
it looks a little strange.
My mom gave me we went for Rosh Hashanah quasi dinner last night
Yeah,
outside on my mom's patio.
yeah,
It was weird. My parents were at one table and we were at another table, like 10 feet apart.
yeah.
My
I'm sure the
mom,
holiday this year was a little bit different for everybody.
it's so crazy. I gotta like put on a mask to go into my mom's washroom. I gotta spray everything down after. It's like
Yeah.
my parents are like nervous too, especially with our kids going to school now.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing is just so crazy. Anyways, let's end with a prediction.
Okay.
I would like to know
Yes.
if you think in the next 4 weeks whether or not the school system will be open or closed.
I would not be surprised if they close, but I think it will be open. It won't shock me. I won't be like, oh my gosh, go figure. I think that there will be some schools that close. There will be some outbreaks where they're forced to close. The school system itself, TDSB or the government, I do not believe will mandate all schools be closed again. That's not my prediction.
So your prediction is that they will be open.
They'll stay open. Yeah.
I will take the opposite end of that. And
Damn you, Darryl.
I will bet you 1 Canadian loonie.
I'm not a gambling man,
Me
but I'd like
neither.
to have pride
But
on the
I'm okay
line
with
here in
$1.
4 weeks for me to be right on that episode come mid to late October.
We will review this.
Yes.
This will be
Beautiful.
reviewed. All
Okay.
right, cool. Well,
I love it.
that
Talk
went
to you soon.
all over the place.
Yeah, it's okay.
That was interesting.
Very interesting.
I had fun.
I liked our our topics today.
Was there anything that we did not talk about?
We'll bring it up next week. Yeah, the one thing I want to talk about, we'll bring it up next week.
There's
Another
a,
thing I want to talk about.
there's a lot of condo launches coming down the pipe.
Yeah, let's get into it next
We will
Sunday.
get into it, baby. All right. I
All
will
right.
talk
Thanks,
to
Daryl.
you later.
Talk to you soon.